Hi, I'm Charlotte and this is Bookish Mama Blooms. I'm here to do my top, well it was going to be 10, but I think there were 11, something, maybe even 12 books. Very annoying for everybody that's OCD like me. I couldn't quite narrow it down. It's taken me longer to get ready for this video than probably it did to read these books. I have faffed about. It's been like I'm going on a night out in my 20s, even though I'm in my late 30s and I'm staying at home and it's like 11 o'clock in the morning. But you've got to make your fun where you can in a pandemic, and the boys are out. They are visiting Idris's nanny on the other side of the family, not my mum, and he's probably having a ball over there. So whilst they're out, I just thought I'll take the opportunity to film and have some fun. So we're going to do the roundup of 2021. I didn't read much, I'm not going to lie to you. I read under 40 books, which for the average reader is excessively good, and I had quite a few messages saying you should be really proud of that, and I am proud of it. I think it's just the juxtaposition of that number with my first year in booktube, which was about 80 something, where I'm just a bit shocked, and I'm also highly competitive with myself, not necessarily with anybody else. So to see that sort of plummet below even halfway, I was, you know, it was just something that made me feel a bit sad. And also reading brings me a lot of joy, and it also grounds me. So whilst it's half of one, half of the other, on the one hand, I needed to do other things in this year of chaos, global chaos. I needed to do other things to ground my mind. So reading didn't necessarily fit. But on the other hand, the lack of reading is indicative of how much inner chaos was going on up there, if that makes sense. So it's not all good news, it's not all bad news, that number, but it's certainly cause for reflection. And yeah, I don't know how you guys feel. I had loads of people, I think it was something like 76% of people responded to my little Instagram survey that they had a poor reading year as well. So I think you either gone one way or the other, you know. And I think it also depends on how much how much your life has changed because of the pandemic. So because of having a little boy in school, our lives have changed, and we've not been able to control our exposure the way we would have done if it had just been the two of us, for example. So anyway, I will crack on. Lots to talk about. The first book I'm going to have in my books of the year is Jenny Odell's How to Do Nothing, Resisting the Attention Economy. If you've got it on your shelf and you haven't picked it up, please do. It's probably out in paperback by now, so I'm sure you can nab it at a fraction of the price I'd pay for this one. It's really good because it teaches you not necessarily that giving up the internet is the answer. I think for some people it really can be the answer, and that's great. But I love the internet. I think, especially when you don't necessarily feel that you fit into everyday society, the internet can be a real saviour. It gives you a community of people that are very much like you, and I need that. I really need that. So there's no way on this earth that I'm giving up the internet, but this sort of shows you how you interact on the internet and maybe gives you some tips on ways. It's not a how-to, by the way. It's a fascinating insight into things that the internet has done to us, and little examples and anecdotes and stuff. But it does, on its way, give you little tips about ways you might want to, you know, adverts, for example, that pop up on social media, the things you share on social media, that sort of thing. You know, it goes into Thoreau, it goes into everything. I really loved it. It's one of those books that was a bit like Susan Orlean's The Library, where it just exploded from this one topic into everything. It kind of was almost going to be my book of the year, and maybe if I'd read it later on in the year it would have been, so I'm sorry, Jenny Odell. Another top book for me was Emily Ratajkowski's My Body. I don't think I've done an Instagram review of this yet, and I've definitely not reviewed it on my channel, but I read this in pretty much one sitting. It's really, really easy to read. It's, you know, a pretty short book. It's a collection of essays. Don't usually like collections of essays any more than I like short stories, because I just find that, yeah, I'll get to the end of one and then there's no compulsion necessarily to read the next one. This was not like that. Loads of stuff to talk about with this. If you've got a book group and you're looking for a book, for the love of God, pick up this one. It asks so many questions about women and their place in the world and how it's connected to their body. And Emily Ratajkowski is obviously very beautiful. She values herself by her own beauty. She admits that freely, but she also hates that part of herself. It also ties in really nicely with the internet stuff, because she finds herself posting pictures that don't really reflect on anything that's happening in that moment, but she feels this need to kind of maintain this online avatar, partly to make money, which also she freely admits, and also it's just this weird way that we all interact with the world. Like, you know, you're feeling miserable, the day is crap, but you've taken a great selfie, so you put something really profound underneath. I think, you know, a lot of us have done that. There's loads more into this book. I would fill up the whole video if I could, but I really recommend it. Also, she's a great writer. The Many Lives of Marilyn Monroe by Sarah Churchwell, another one I haven't reviewed online yet. It was amazing. You don't even have to like Marilyn to really love this book, because what Churchwell does, she doesn't tell you anything new. She doesn't retell Marilyn's story in any definitive way. She goes into Marilyn's biographies and takes each section of her life. So she does it in, the sections are magazines and the model, producing the life, Norma Jean, female trouble, so stuff about her body. And she goes through the books and she basically goes through everything that's published that we definitely know about Marilyn, because it's in print, everything that's in print, and she traces it back. And a lot of the times it's traced back to nothing. So all these things, especially, you know, I'm a Marilyn fan, you probably all know that. All of these things that we know, that we kind of think of as being part of the true story of Marilyn Monroe, sometimes come from this really weird circle of hearsay that actually came from nowhere. I just found it a fascinating piece of journalism on the way biographies work, celebrity culture works. It also just reminded me of all of the things Marilyn went through, and just my fascination with her life was reignited. Another book that I read this year that I would put, it was almost as good as this, and that was Marilyn's Year in New York. I cannot find a blinking book. I've looked everywhere. It's probably right behind me. I haven't lent it to anyone, so I don't know where it is, but it was amazing. I can't remember the author. I'll put the book up in the side. I know, I'm very good at this. It was really, really good. That was all about a year of her life in New York and the joy that it brought her. I loved it so much. Some of the stuff then when you read it in here is not necessarily true. So that's interesting as well. But it was great. It was a great sort of chunk of someone's life at a time of flux and change. I think it was quite inspiring, for me anyway. I can't even believe I read this year. I think because I started it in like 2019 and then finished it this year. But even finishing it doesn't seem like it happened recently. This is Daily Rituals, Women at Work by Mason Currey. There's dust on everything in this house. There's probably dust on the tree. This was amazing. It's so good. I read the first one. I'm pretty sure that made it into my top 10. The first one was meant to be about all different types of writers and artists, and he then freely admitted that there were barely any women in it, so this was his correction of that work. And this is just chock full of women. It's great. It's fascinating, bite-sized, you just want to keep reading. I would never have put it down if it wasn't for the pandemic, because it is just really, if you're sat next to someone when you're reading it, you're forever going, oh, listen to this, listen to this. Very annoying. You'll be an extremely annoying person when you read this, but it's totally worth it. This blew me away. We Still Here, Pandemic, Policing, Protest and Possibility by Marc Lamont Hill. This was recommended to me by the lovely Ariel of She Wants the Diction, and I'm so happy that you recommended this to us all, because it's short but it is powerful. This is a book of our times, about everything that's gone on, Black Lives Matter, all the protests, condensed, I mean I don't know how, but condensed into this really powerful little book, so I would definitely give that one a go. I feel like I saw this on Ariel's channel too. Did I see this on your channel? Let me know. This is Ace, What Asexuality Reveals About Desire, Society and the Meaning of Sex by Angela Chen. I read this because I thought I'm going to educate myself about asexuality. I don't feel I fit into that group, but I'm going to learn about it. You know, the way you sometimes want to just learn about something else. So much of this book is relevant to everybody, but I would say in some ways almost more relevant to cisgender, heterosexual couples, because when you fit into that norm, I think you just think that there's nothing more to learn. Do you know what I mean? About things like consent, for example. We all know about consent, do we? This really blew my mind, because when you're asexual, the issue of consent is different. You can imagine that it would be. When she broke it down, I was amazed at how much of that really could fit into my life and educate me and make my life better. So I would thoroughly encourage, I mean, it's enough to want to read about somebody else's life, right? You don't have to enjoy it, you know, to have it fit to you to enjoy it. I'm not saying that. But you will just be shocked at how much, if you do fit into that cisgender heterosexual world, that it will, this, which may not seem, there's a lot of things about fetishes in here, kinks, all sorts of stuff in here that you wouldn't necessarily expect to find, because I didn't know anything before I went in. I just loved it. One of those books where you just think, wow, I know nothing. A fiction book. Is this the first one? Yes. I haven't read very much fiction. The summer book, Tove Jansson. Bloody love it. Just so good. I feel like it's the sort of book you could keep reading forever and ever. Old lady, little girl, teaching each other about what the world is through their own eyes. Amazing. Also islands. I love islands. Very different. Oh, the dog is going to stop barking. No, they're not. Very different. Grady Hendrix, the final girl support group. I put this in. It's pulp, you know, it's pulp fiction. It's not, it's, you know, it's horror. I feel like sometimes there's a tendency to, oh, you know, only pick like the most profound books for your top 10 or whatever. No, this just grabbed me. I was really hooked. I enjoyed it. It was about feminism, the power of women who just will not give up. You know, the final girls, they are being attacked, stalked, arrested. Their lives have been taken away from them. The main character is pretty much agoraphobic, which is just a hugely an interesting metaphor for what's gone on with all of us in the pandemic, I think. But they won't give up, you know, and they value life. And I just found that really inspiring. And I just love the way Grady Hendrix writes. I don't know how he does it, especially when he's writing about women. I don't read a lot of male authors, you probably noticed that as well. But yeah, loved it. Again, bit different. Truman Capote's In Cold Blood. I had some really sort of surprised responses when I said I really loved this book. I think because there was a sense of I should sort of moralise maybe over Capote's relationship with one of the killers. What was his name? Perry Smith. The whole reason why I loved it was because I kind of knew contextually that there were other things going on from just general knowledge and what have you. And I found it fascinating nonetheless. You know, what he does with this, it's not true. You know, if you think this is going to be a true story, the way it pertains to be, it's not. And he kind of, well, it wasn't pertaining to be. It's, what did he call it? Autofiction. But it presents itself as journalism. So there's an element where you kind of assume it would be true. It's his take on it. And there's huge embellishment. And when you watch the Capote films, which we did afterwards, which again, they're not greatly accurate, but we watched a couple of biography, you know, style films. What I found really interesting was that it gave another dimension then to how much he was suffering during the writing of this and his strained relationship with the killers as he wrote about this. Really loved it. His writing is amazing. Recently read Breakfast at Tiffany's. Did not like it. I was so shocked. Just one of those things, isn't it? I could see his writing was good, but I just didn't like the book. Again, dusting off books. Black Sun, Rebecca Roanhorse, so another fiction. Second fiction that's mentioned. And it's only 2 actually out of all of these. Oops. Loved it. Totally original. Part of a trilogy apparently. When is the next one coming out? This is so frustrating. I'm the sort of person who cannot watch a series unless the whole thing is online. So yeah, I find it enormously frustrating to be left at the end without the second book there waiting for me. But I loved it. You must all know the context. That's not the right word. Storyline. That's not really the right word. Premise. That's the word of this. So I'll leave it there. But it is awesome, and I really recommend it. We're coming close to the end. This book was nearly number 1 very, very nearly. And I hate kind of, it does something so different to the one that I've chosen that it feels a bit ridiculous to have picked one over the other. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if you've done top 10s in your own home, or if you're a booktuber and you've done them, you know, for your channel. But it sometimes feels really weird choosing one book over the other when they've just performed and done different things. But anyway, A Tomb with a View by Peter Ross. The stories of, and glories of graveyards. And I've spilt coffee on this. I'm very sorry. Wow. Peter Ross goes round mostly the UK, but he does go to France as well. And he goes to graveyards and he basically just tells their stories. And I say just, but it's not like that. His writing is exceptional. He's very inclusive. I feel like he's just a really nice guy. That was kind of the vibe I got. And the stories he chooses are so interesting. Using death and the graveyards as a starting point, a springboard to talk about life. Brilliant. I couldn't want anything more from a book. We also then went and got the film A Million Dubliners, I think it's called, which is about a very specific graveyard called Glasnevin. And that was amazing and emotional. There's a chapter related to that, which is so emotional. And then watching the film afterwards was just this huge experience. Stephen has yet to take me. I've said, ever since I've read this, I was like, you've got to take me to a graveyard. That is where I want to go. You know, it's hard being married to me sometimes. And when he does take me to a graveyard, I've got this great idea for a shot that I'm going to do for my Instagram, but it's just not happened yet. So some of these books may be reviewed in 2022, which really disturbs my OCD as well, but what can you do? So yeah, loved it, really recommend it. My only little qualm with it is that even though it's meant, well, it seems to cover the whole of the UK, there's nothing in Wales. And I can only assume that that means that Peter Ross's next book will be entirely about Welsh graveyards, obviously. Here it is. I don't know if you can see it in shot. This was really hard to choose, and it's a little bit depressing that this is my book of the year, but this is what it is, people. Unwell Women, Elinor Cleghorn. A journey through medicine and myth in a man-made world. It's amazing. Everybody should read it. Anybody medical should read it, okay? I know there's a different perspective just from the fact that I could, you know, got a brain and I can work it out. But there's a different perspective when you're on the other side of the GP's desk or whatever, with people coming in thinking they know what's wrong with them. I'm sure it must be, you know, there must be elements of frustration. But you need to read this anyway, because the amount of things that have happened to women in history, you as an individual, and I mean everybody, always thinks that they're able to sort of maybe outgrow or outsee the context which we live in, you know, societal context, familial context, okay, gender context. But you can't. You're mad to think you can. We're all trapped. I am trapped. It takes an enormously strong personality to move themselves beyond all of the context that has come before them and continues to kind of encircle them, right? Those people are kind of mavericks, you know, and we see them, you know, and they stand out by the fact that they haven't stuck to the norm. I feel like if you read this and you are a medic, you would be blown away by the things that maybe under the surface influence the way you treat female patients. Now, I know there's a lot of people out there who are good medics, and this is not aimed at you, but I have had a huge experience of bad medics, and I've not been to the doctors in my life that much. I hate going to the doctors. It's one of my huge triggers. I actually have letters sent to me by my GP begging me to come in because I've left quite a serious situation. Just let it go. And they've wanted me to come in to talk about blood test results, and they phoned me and I've not answered, and then they've finally written to me, and then they've written to me again. So I don't like to go in, but when I do go in, I have such a terrible experience most of the time, because you leave feeling as though you've made it up, essentially, or that you're almost being punished for already knowing what is wrong. Loads of you will be able to relate to this. This book was like reading the story of my life and everything that went before it, and as such it was hugely emotional. So tread carefully, because it did make me really, really angry and really, really sad. Elinor Cleghorn covers lots of things as well. She covers tons of stuff. I feel like she could have written probably 6 of these. You felt like she just was giving you the tip of the iceberg in every scenario. But I really value how she put it all together. I don't know how she did it. Elinor Cleghorn has lupus and was misdiagnosed for 7 years, which is a really long time to live with lupus and not know what it is. So yeah, this is my book of the year, and this has been a year about this kind of stuff for me. It's probably the reason why I haven't read very much. So if you have gone through similar things, then I really care about that, and I would love to talk to you about that. I have hundreds of conversations about this stuff in my Instagram, but I'm very aware that a lot of you that follow me aren't necessarily on Instagram. So drop me a message. Don't really want to give out my email, but I don't know how else you're going to contact me. So you're either going to have to do it publicly in messages, or you're going to have to join Instagram, which a couple of you have done in order to talk to booktubers, which is so nice. Anyway, get it, read it. That's it. I feel like I want to go disco dancing now, but there's literally nowhere. I've got the most amazing shoes on, by the way, and when I do the cover shot for this video, I don't know how I'm going to include them without it looking like I'm... Oh, here we go. Edward. Edward. Oh, that better not be them pulling up. Do you know what? I've probably spent so long getting ready that like 3 hours have gone by and I've not even noticed it. Okay. I'm going to stop now. That is it. Books of the year. I hope you've had a good reading year, and 2022. What can I say? We'll see how it goes. Take care. Bye.